hi, we outside. Thank you for being here with me at this moment in time. I hope that you are open to receive the message that is in this video. I appreciate all of your likes, comments, and subscribes. I had 20 subscribers and I blinked my eyes and I was up to 300, and I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that God is using me, and I hope that you find upliftment, encouragement in the messages and the stories, in the information that I share in these videos. So it is story time. So it is cold as hell. It's cold. I do not like cold weather, but I love the outside more than I don't like cold weather. So here we are, and I wanted to be amongst the trees to share this story that came to me. So there was a ship, a huge ship that many people were invited to live on, to grow, to cultivate their gifts. And the chief of the ship had a direct connection to God, and God spoke to her. And she was a great leader who embodied love and embodied God on earth. She essentially is the Jesus Christ in this story, if we were to reference her or connect her to something that people could understand. She was the teacher. She was the Buddha. The chief was given a message by God to select a handful of the people that were on the ship to move to the next level of the ship, to move up in the ship. And she was guiding them to the next level. And although it was on a ship, it was large, and it was a challenge to get up to the next level. So before they were chosen and told that they were going to the next level, they were working out in the strength and training room. And there was some dissension happening, some confusion and gossip that was spreading amongst the larger group. And on this ship, everyone had a purpose, and everyone's purpose was important to the grander and greater vision and mission at hand. So there was no accident who was on this ship. And there were many people working to maintain and keep the ship running. And in the kitchen was someone who was very powerful and strong, and they were chosen to be on the ship. But as people were being selected to move up to the next level on the ship, this man was becoming very disgruntled. He was becoming dissatisfied, and he was allowing his pride and ego to taint his experience. And he was beginning to not feel fulfilled in the role that he was gifted to be in. And he was the head cook, and he was the leader as well. So he had people that followed him. But he was beginning to create dissent within the community. He was gossiping and talking about the chief in a way that was very undermining and discrediting to the chief, and it went against what the purpose was for everyone on the ship, which was to follow the chief, as the chief was being guided directly by God, and everything had a purpose. The man in the kitchen was becoming so disgruntled that he was beginning to not prepare the food in the way that was in a cleanly way, in an organized way. He was beginning to be disorganized. He was so prideful and full of ego that he began to do things in an improper way. And people were starting to get sick. And the man had a rag that he kept tucked into his apron. And he would use the same rag over and over every day to crack the eggs. And he would crack a big bowl of eggs, hundreds of eggs, and he would have egg dripping all over the rag, and he would just soak it in water, dip it in water and wring it out and stick it right back into the string of his apron. And it would hang from the string of his apron, and it was gooky and it was nasty, and he was beginning to look like that rag. The animosity and the resentment he had towards the chief was starting to affect his appearance. It was starting to affect his work life, his energy. He was very angry. So he began to use the following that he had to create dissension. And he had an audience and other people that were on the ship that would begin to be in agreement with him of his anger and his vile. And he would make fun of the chief's decisions and say claims that the chief wasn't connected to God. What God would put this woman in charge. And as he spewed this vile energy, more people gathered with him and were in agreement. And they laughed at the things he said, and they gossiped, and it fueled him. It fed his ego. And as it fed his ego and his pride, he continued to look like that rag that was hanging from his apron. He began to look worn and aged and tired and dirty. Well, it was time for the chief to go into the workout in the strength training room to tell the chosen handful that it was time to move up to the next level of training, to the next level on the ship. And it was a hard road of travel to move up onto the ship. So the chief gathered the small handful, the handpicked from the workout and training room, and they traveled along and through the ship, and they reached a pool of sorts that had rocks inside the pool. And the rocks had large space in between it. So the chief's job was not to lift up the chosen to get up to the next training space. The chief's job was there to to be encouraging, to hold their hand, to let them know that if they fell into the pool of water, that she was there to make sure that they didn't drown. But she wouldn't carry them. They had to use their own strength to lift themselves up. But they had a safeguard. If they did slip, the chief was strong and knew exactly what to do because God spoke to her. And she would be able to make sure that they didn't drown. So they had to have faith, they had to trust, and they had to use their own strength and willpower to move up, to get through the pool, and to climb over the rocks to get to the next level of their training. Because this too was a part of the journey and a part of the test. So the chief had to be in deep prayer and focus to make sure that she was giving her undivided attention to each chosen one that was moving up, to make sure they didn't slip or drown. Wow, a beautiful hawk just flew low right in between the trees, right in front of me. So I know that God is watching. So the chief had to remain focused. The chief couldn't leave from this journey to go and attend to the man in the kitchen. Because while the chief had selected the chosen people that God told her to be on this journey to move up, more people that were on the ship were getting sick from the food that was coming out the kitchen that this man was preparing. So she sent him a message and she told him, "We are on an important journey. Your job is important. You are a crucial part of this journey. Do not be disheartened that you have not been chosen this time. Your role is to feed the people, and that is an important role. And God has given you specific instructions on how to do it well. Please follow God's instructions." And the man scoffed, and he mocked the chief, and he made fun of the chief and the chief's relationship with God. And as the man was doing this, and he had an audience of his followers, they were laughing, and he was cracking the eggs and using the same dirty, nasty towel. The towel at this point is just slimy and gunky and just full of disease. And he continued to use it. He disobeyed the chief. He didn't listen to the messages that the chief had that the chief relayed to him. And as he was mocking and making fun of the chief and laughing at this woman who says that God is speaking to her, who is she to choose any chosen ones? I should be a chosen one. He's dipping his rag in the water after cracking hundreds of eggs, and the slimy eggs and the slimy water, and he's laughing and he's mocking, and he's so full of resentment and bitterness and vile that he's not paying attention to what he's doing. And he begins to wring the rag out, but he's wringing it out right over his drinking cup. And the people that are standing there laughing and in agreement with him, they don't even warn him. They watch and allow him to squeeze out the vileness from that rag right into his own drinking cup. The chief is beginning to feel anger, but can't. The chief has to focus on helping the chosen ones. And one of the chosen ones is lifting and pulling themselves up on the rock, and they begin to slip. And they slip and they fall into the pool of water, and the chief dives into the water and pulls them out the water and encourages them and prays with them. You have been chosen because you have the strength to pull yourself up. I allowed anger to move me out of prayer, and I wasn't completely focused on you. And they prayed together, all of the chosen ones. And they prayed that this chosen one that had slipped on the rock would have the strength to lift themselves up. And they did. And they were all moved over to the new strength training room. And the chief left them to go into deep prayer to address the anger that was felt. And that's where the story ends. The chief went to sit with God. The man drank his own diseased water, and all of the people that were there laughing with him and in agreement with him and feeding his pride and his ego, they didn't even care enough to warn him. So the story ends there. I don't know if the man got sick or if he transitioned. I don't know. The story ends there. And there's a lot in that story that we can learn. Your purpose may not be someone else's purpose. Maybe their purpose is to aid you in your purpose. And somewhere along the way, they got lost in pride and ego and in resentment and confusion. And they allowed that devil energy that lives within all of us to take over. And because they were so powerful, they manifested an audience to continue to feed that pride and ego. And they lost sight of their own purpose. Because their purpose was just as important as the chosen ones. And who's to say that it wouldn't have been their turn next if they were able to fight through that darkness and to trust the chief and to trust God, that their time would come and that their purpose and them being on the ship was of value. They needed to be there to support and feed the people. That was a very important role. But they were in discontent with their role. They wanted the role of another person so badly that they poisoned themselves. And even the chief, who is one with God, can feel anger and can be disheartened. It is human to feel a range of emotions. And when we get deeper in alignment with God, we are able to move through those emotions and pray that God give us understanding and vision to see what the lesson is of those emotions that we may be experiencing. So I shared great detail of that story. That story came to me as a vision. I saw it in a dream. And typically I will keep most of my dreams to myself because they're for me to understand and to learn, to interpret. But I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this specific dream needed to be shared as a story. And I hope that you found value in that. And to my chosen ones, stay focused, stay in prayer, keep your vision on God. God is strengthening you. You are in training to go to the next level. And God is not going to do it for you, but He will make sure that you do not drown. He will make sure that you are strong and resilient and prepared and will hold your hand every step of the way. Every step of the way. So you can do the lifting. It's just like when someone is in a gym and you have a spotter. The spotter doesn't lift the weights, but the spotter will make sure that the weight does not fall on you. That's what God does. Whoa! Oh, man. That is what God does. God spots you so you can do the heavy lifting and is there to encourage you and to help train you and to slowly and steadily and consistently build you up, and will make sure that when you go to lift yourself on that rock and when you're going on that journey and you're climbing higher, God won't let you slip into the water and drown. You may fall into the water, but you won't drown. Man. If you're watching this video, then you are bound to understand, whether you understand now or later, the feeling of feeling that and knowing that there is something greater than you, that you can take those risks and you can move forward. And you don't have to be afraid of drowning. Man. Tears of joy. And to all of my people who know these type of tears, because you've been in the darkest of darkest places and you lifted yourself out because God would not let you drown, then you know what I'm saying, man. You know it and you feel it. I'm so grateful to have had this message to share with you. I know that it will reach those who will benefit the most from it in this life. Y'all take care.